The sun rises over the city, casting long shadows across a quiet residential neighborhood. It's early morning, the kind of morning that belongs to people who work with their hands, who understand the value of time, who don't waste a single moment. We see a modest two-bedroom apartment, the kind that represents hope more than luxury, sacrifice more than comfort. Inside, we find our story. James Parker is already awake, moving quietly through his small kitchen. He's 38 years old, the kind of man whose face tells you he's lived more than most people twice his age. His dark hair is slightly grayed at the temples, and his gray-blue eyes carry a particular kind of sadness. Not the sadness of regret, but the sadness of someone who's lost something precious and learned to carry the weight. He wears a simple light blue work shirt, already prepared for a day of physical labor, the sleeves already rolled up past his elbows. His movements are precise, efficient. He pours 2 glasses of orange juice, one regular size, one smaller. "Sophie," he calls softly down the hallway. "It's time, sweetheart." There's a moment of silence, then the sound of small feet on hardwood. Sophie emerges from her bedroom, blonde hair in a neat braid, rubbing her eyes. She's 7 years old, with her father's light blue eyes, and a natural intelligence that seems too aware for her age. She's wearing the school dress that James helped her choose yesterday, a cute floral pattern with white socks and black Mary Jane shoes. In her small hands, she carries her backpack. Sophie yawns and immediately seeks her father's hand. This is their ritual. Every morning, this small girl reaches for her father's hand without hesitation, without question. It's the most important moment of James's day. "Good morning, baby girl," he says, kissing the top of her head. "You excited about today?" "Nervous," Sophie admits, sitting at the small kitchen table. "Ms. Rodriguez said parents come to show their jobs today. Will you come, Daddy?" James sets her juice in front of her. He pauses for just a moment, the kind of pause that tells you everything about what's happening inside his head. But his expression doesn't change. "Of course I will," he says. "I wouldn't miss it." He doesn't tell her that he had to request time off from his construction job. He doesn't tell her that taking 3 hours off means 3 hours of lost wages, which means something else won't get fixed in their apartment, which means the careful budget he maintains will shift like a Jenga tower. He simply smiles at his daughter and eats breakfast with her, listening to her talk about her friends and what she wants to be when she grows up. "I want to be brave like you, Daddy," she says simply, drinking her juice. James's jaw tightens almost imperceptibly. He reaches across the table and squeezes her small hand. They arrive at Westbrook Elementary at 8:30 in the morning. James has changed into what he considers his nice work clothes. The light blue shirt is clean, if faded, ironed that morning on a towel spread across the kitchen counter because they don't own an ironing board. The jeans are worn, but without holes. He's polished his white work boots as best he could, scrubbing the scuff marks with a wet cloth while Sophie ate her cereal. His old silver Timex watch catches the light as he helps Sophie from the car, the same watch his wife gave him on their first anniversary, the one that still keeps perfect time because he replaces the battery every 6 months without fail. Their car is a 12-year-old Honda Civic with a dent in the rear bumper and a crack in the windshield that he's been meaning to fix. It sits in the school parking lot between a BMW X5 and a Tesla Model S, looking like an apology written in faded blue paint. The school is bustling with activity. Parents are arriving in expensive cars, dressed in business suits and power outfits. There are lawyers checking their phones, doctors still wearing their hospital IDs, investment bankers with briefcases that cost more than James's monthly grocery budget. There are women in perfectly tailored blazers carrying designer bags and men in pressed shirts with cufflinks that catch the morning light. And there is James Parker, in his worn work clothes and honest hands, standing a little straighter than usual because his daughter is watching. Sophie squeezes his hand tighter as they walk into the school. "You look nice, Daddy," she whispers, sensing his tension. "Thank you, baby," he says. "You look beautiful. That's what matters." The classroom is decorated with colorful posters. Ms. Rodriguez, the second-grade teacher, greets them warmly. She's a woman who sees all her students' parents as equals, as people doing their best to provide for their children. She doesn't see James's worn clothes. She sees a father who arrives early, who attends all school events, who has attended every single one of Sophie's parent-teacher conferences and never missed a single one. "Mr. Parker, I'm so glad you could make it," Mrs. Rodriguez says warmly. "Sophie has been talking about your visit all week. She's so proud of what you do." Sophie beams. She leads her father to an area of the classroom where she's already prepared a presentation about him. There's a drawing of her father, slightly idealized, with bigger muscles, a crown on his head, labeled, "My Hero." Next to it are her descriptions. "My daddy is strong. My daddy is kind. My daddy never gives up." James reads these words, written in his daughter's careful handwriting, and for a moment, the man who has survived so much appears as though he might break. But he doesn't. He smiles, kisses Sophie on the forehead, and takes his place in the designated parent presentation area. At 9:30 a.m., Ms. Rodriguez addresses the class. "Children, today is very special. Some of your parents have a surprise for us. Instead of coming to your classroom, you're all going on a very special field trip. We're visiting the headquarters of Sterling Technology Corporation, where one of your classmates' parents works. We're going to tour their offices, see what an important company does, and understand what your parents do to provide for you." Sophie looks surprised. She didn't know about this. James didn't know about this. Ms. Rodriguez explains that there's a new scholarship and mentorship program that Sterling Technology has launched, a program for gifted children in underserved communities. Sophie's school has been selected as a pilot program, and as part of the initiative, the program directors want to meet with the families personally. "It's a great honor," Ms. Rodriguez says, "and Mr. Parker, they specifically asked if you could come. They want to meet all the program participants' families in person." James nods slowly. He has no idea what this is about, but he knows that this is for Sophie. Sophie's future. He's learned never to question these kinds of opportunities. 45 minutes later, 2 buses pull up to the Westbrook Elementary School parking lot. The children and their parents board, and James sits next to Sophie, her small hand in his, as they drive across the city toward the gleaming downtown skyline. The Sterling Technology Corporation building is the kind of structure that seems to pierce the clouds. 42 stories of glass and steel and chrome, a monument to success and power and everything that James Parker has worked his whole life to provide for his daughter. Not the money, but the opportunities to access places like this, to see that the world is bigger than their small apartment. Security is waiting at the entrance. The parents are checked in, given visitor badges. The children are handed special lanyards that mark them as part of the mentorship program. James is given a simple badge. Visitor. The lobby is immaculate. Marble floors that could show a reflection from space. Abstract art that costs more than James's annual salary. A reception desk of polished stone with staff who smile professionally at the arriving group. "Welcome to Sterling Technology," the security guard says. He doesn't look at James's badge. He looks at James's hands, calloused and work-worn, and then quickly looks away. The group is led to an elevator bank. They ascend toward the upper floors, and as they rise, the tension in the air seems to increase. James can feel the shift. The lobby was for visitors. But up here? Up here is where the real work happens. The real money. The real power. The elevator doors open on the 35th floor. The executive offices of Sterling Technology Corporation are exactly what you would imagine if you imagined perfection designed by people who have never had to worry about money. The carpet is so plush that walking on it feels like walking on clouds. The walls are covered in expensive abstract art. The windows offer a view of the entire city spread out below, like a map of possibility. The group is led to a holding area, a beautiful waiting room with modern furniture and subtle lighting. Ms. Rodriguez is directed to a different area with some of the other parents. But James is told to wait here with Sophie, while the children are taken to a separate room for the program introduction. "I'll be right here, baby girl," James tells Sophie, kneeling down to her level. "Be brave, okay? And be kind to the other children." Sophie hugs her father tightly, then follows the other children through a set of double doors. James sits down in an expensive chair that doesn't feel comfortable. He's alone in the waiting room now, surrounded by the trappings of wealth and success. He looks down at his hands, at the calluses, the dirt under his fingernails from this morning's work, the simple silver band on his left ring finger that he's never removed since his wife died 7 years ago. The door opens. Rebecca Sterling enters the waiting room like a force of nature. She's tall, blonde, beautiful, in a way that requires significant maintenance and investment. She wears a sharp red power suit that probably cost more than James's monthly rent. Gold jewelry adorns her wrists and neck, a Rolex watch, diamond studs, a gold nameplate necklace that reads, R. Sterling, CEO. Her heels click against the marble floor, each step a proclamation of authority. She's looking at her phone, not paying attention to anything else. Then she looks up. Her eyes land on James, and something shifts in her expression. It's not a shift you can quite put your finger on. It's not overtly rude, not yet. It's the shift that happens when a person has made an assumption about someone based entirely on appearance, and then that person is in an unexpected context. Rebecca Sterling's eyes travel down James's work shirt. They note the worn denim. They observe the white work boots, scuffed and honest. Her gaze travels back to his face, and now there's a slight curl to her lip, the tiniest hint of contempt. "Is there something I can help you with?" she asks, and her tone is not unkind exactly. It's the tone you use when you're speaking to service personnel, the tone that says, "I see you, but not really. I acknowledge your presence, but not your personhood." "I'm here for the mentorship program," James says quietly. "My daughter is Sophie Parker." Rebecca Sterling's expression doesn't change, but something flickers in her eyes. A moment of recalibration, but not in the direction of respect. "How lovely," she says, and the word lovely is delivered with a particular kind of intonation that turns it into something else entirely, something closer to quaint. "It's wonderful that you're supportive of your daughter's education. Not all families, in certain circumstances, are equally invested." The implication is clear. She sees his appearance. She's made calculations. She's arrived at conclusions. "I'm very invested in my daughter," James says simply. His voice is calm, even, carrying an undertone of strength that seems to surprise her. "She's everything to me." Rebecca Sterling smiles, a smile that doesn't reach her eyes. It's the smile of someone being polite to someone they consider beneath them. "Well, that's wonderful," she says, already turning away. "The program is quite selective, you understand. We only accept the most promising students from the most promising families. I'm sure your daughter will find it very enriching compared to her normal circumstances." And with that, she clicks away, her heels announcing her departure like a timer counting down to something inevitable. James sits back down. His jaw is tight, but his expression remains unchanged. He's become expert at this, at absorbing disrespect without visibly reacting to it. It's a skill he's honed over years of construction sites and corporate building jobs, of being the guy who works on the structure but isn't invited to the celebration when it's completed. 15 minutes pass, then 20, then 30. The door opens again, and Rebecca Sterling re-enters the waiting room. This time, she's not alone. She's with her assistant, a young woman who looks nervously at James. "Why is this person still here?" Rebecca asks her assistant, as if James is not sitting directly in front of them, as if he's an object rather than a human being. I'm not sure," the assistant stammers. "He said he's here for the mentorship program." Rebecca Sterling actually laughs. It's not a kind laugh. It's the laugh of someone who finds something amusing in a way that's directed at someone else's expense. This man, in a program for gifted children from promising families, do you know what I think happened? I think there was a mistake. Someone's secretary made an error. She approaches James, looking down at him from her considerable height, enhanced by her heels. "What exactly is it that you do, sir?" The word "sir" is technically a sign of respect, but in her mouth it becomes something else. A tool. A way of highlighting the divide between them. "I'm a construction manager," James says. "I oversee structural integrity projects." "Construction," Rebecca repeats, and in that single word, an entire universe of judgment is contained. She turns slightly toward her assistant and speaks in a voice that's not quite a whisper, the kind of voice designed to be overheard. "Madison, can you check if maybe there's been a clerical error with the program applications? I'm finding it hard to believe that the screening process would have," she glances at James, "missed something this obvious." Madison shifts uncomfortably but says nothing. Rebecca turns back to James. "And your daughter, Sophie, you said, she's in what grade?" "Second grade," James says. "And she's reading at a 5th grade level. She's in advanced mathematics. She won the district science fair last spring. She's also the kindest child I know." Rebecca tilts her head, studying him the way someone might study an insect under glass. "How ambitious of you. To imagine that someone from your background could have a child who'd qualify for a program like this. No offense, mister." She waves her hand vaguely, not bothering to remember his name. "Parker." "Mr. Parker. But these programs exist for families who can, well, nurture that kind of talent. Who can provide the right environment, the right resources, the right—" She gestures at the expensive office around them. "Exposure. You'd be surprised what the right love can provide," James says. Rebecca's smile tightens. "Love doesn't pay for tutors. Love doesn't get your child into the right prep school. Love is lovely, but it's not a strategy." She pauses, then adds with a small laugh, "It's almost charming, actually. Your optimism." She turns to leave again, then stops and looks over her shoulder. "I'll have Madison sort this out. In the meantime, you're welcome to wait in the lobby. Downstairs. The main floor lobby, not this one. This floor is for executives and invited guests." "I was invited," James says. "Were you?" Rebecca says. And the question is not a question at all. It's a dismissal wrapped in 2 words. And that's when something happens that will echo through the rest of the day. "Ms. Sterling," the assistant says nervously, touching her arm. "I just got a notification. The board is asking if our guest has arrived. They said something about being ready for the 2 o'clock meeting." Rebecca Sterling's expression doesn't change, but James notices something. She glances at him, and for just a moment, something like uncertainty flickers across her face. "What guest?" she asks her assistant. "I'm not sure. They just said, the new shareholder. They said he specifically requested to meet the mentorship program participants." Rebecca Sterling processes this. She looks at her phone, and James sees her face go pale. "When did this notification come through?" she demands. 5 minutes ago, from the board secretary," Rebecca Sterling looks at James with new eyes. But not kind eyes. Confused eyes. Eyes that are trying to recalculate, but not arriving at the right answer. "Come with me," Rebecca Sterling says to James abruptly. It's not a request. "I'd prefer to wait for my daughter," James begins. "Now," she says, and it's the first time her voice has carried anything other than contempt. Now it carries something like uncertainty, which is worse. She leads him out of the waiting room, down a corridor of glass-walled offices. Heads turn as they pass. Everyone wonders why the CEO is walking with a man in work clothes. Rebecca Sterling leads him to her private office. It's exactly what you'd expect. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, a massive mahogany desk, leather furniture that costs more than most people's cars, abstract art on the walls, and a private bar stocked with expensive liquor. She closes the door behind them. "Who are you?" she demands, and now there's something like fear in her voice. "Who sent you here?" "I told you," James says calmly. "I'm here for the mentorship program. My daughter qualified." "Qualified," Rebecca repeats. "Yes. You know, it's interesting. I've been CEO of this company for 6 years. I know every program we run. I know every scholarship. I know every initiative. And I've never heard of a mentorship program where the qualifications seem to include this." She gestures vaguely at him, at his work clothes, at his hands. "Maybe you should pay closer attention to what your company does," James suggests gently. And that's when Rebecca Sterling makes a decision. She walks to her desk phone and presses a button. "Security," she says. "I need you to escort someone from the building. Conference room C. Now." James doesn't move. He simply watches her with those steady gray-blue eyes. "I think you should reconsider," he says quietly. "I think you should leave," Rebecca Sterling responds. "Before I have you removed. This company serves a certain clientele, a certain standard, and frankly, you don't meet it. I don't know how you got past security downstairs, but this is over." There's a knock at the door. Security arrives, 2 large men in dark suits. "Ms. Sterling," one of them says respectfully. "Please escort this gentleman out of the building," she instructs. "He's not an approved visitor, and check with downstairs about how he got up here in the first place. We need to tighten our screening process." The security guards approach James. One of them, an older man with kind eyes, looks genuinely uncomfortable. "Sir," he says quietly, "if you could just come with us." James stands up slowly. He looks at Rebecca Sterling one final time. In his eyes, there's no anger. There's no resentment. There's something almost like pity, like he's looking at someone who is missing something essential, and he understands it. He's been in rooms like this before, rooms where appearance was the only currency that mattered, where the suit you wore determined whether you were human. "Ms. Sterling," he says, his voice calm and measured, "before I go, I want you to think about something. My daughter is downstairs in your building right now. She drew a picture of me this morning and labeled it, 'My Hero.' She doesn't care about my clothes or my job title. She cares that I showed up, that I'm here. That's what matters to a child. And someday, if you're lucky enough to have children of your own, I hope you'll understand the difference between what a person looks like and what a person is worth." Rebecca Sterling's expression flickers. Just for a moment, something almost human passes across her face. But it's gone as quickly as it appeared, replaced by the hard, professional mask. "That's a lovely sentiment," she says coldly. "Security?" James nods to the guards. "I'm sorry you feel that way," he says, "for my daughter's sake." And he turns toward the security guards, apparently ready to leave. That's when his phone buzzes. James looks at it. His expression doesn't change, but something in his posture shifts slightly. He looks at Rebecca Sterling, and now there's something different in his eyes. I'm going to make a phone call, he says calmly. I suggest you take it. He dials a number. He waits for 3 seconds, then speaks. Hello, this is James Parker. Yes. No, I'm currently at the Sterling Technology offices. There's been a minor misunderstanding with the CEO. I think it would be best if we addressed it directly. Yes, I understand. I'll wait. He hands the phone to Rebecca Sterling. Rebecca Sterling stares at the phone like it might bite her. Her hand is trembling as she takes it. Hello, she says. On the other end of the line is Gerald Worthington, the chairman of the board of Sterling Technology Corporation. What James hears is her breath stopping, her face going white, her hand gripping the edge of her desk. Yes, sir, she whispers. Yes, I see. No, I didn't. I had no idea. Yes, sir, I'll go get him right now, sir. No, he's fine. Right here. I apologize profusely, sir. She hangs up the phone. She hands it back to James. Her hand is shaking. You, she says, and her voice is barely a whisper. But the board said. I think we should wait for them, James says calmly. They're on their way. 7 minutes later, the elevator arrives on the 35th floor. When the doors open, Gerald Worthington emerges. A 70-year-old man in an impeccably tailored suit, his silver hair perfectly coiffed, his bearing one of absolute authority. He's followed by 3 other board members and several executive assistants. When Gerald Worthington sees James Parker, his face breaks into a genuine smile. James, he says warmly, extending his hand. We've been expecting you. I apologize for the confusion. These are my colleagues on the board, Margaret Chen, David Thompson, and Richard Kumar. Gentlemen, this is James Parker. All 4 board members immediately stand at attention. They shake James's hand. They call him Mr. Parker. They call him Sir. They treat him with the kind of deference usually reserved for people of immense importance. Rebecca Sterling stands frozen by her desk, watching this scene unfold. Gerald Worthington turns to her with an expression that is not unkind exactly, but which carries the weight of profound disappointment. Rebecca, he says, we have something to discuss. In private. But first, let me explain something to our new chairman what has happened here. The word chairman hangs in the air. New chairman. James, Gerald Worthington continues, as you know, 3 months ago, the board approved the acquisition of Sterling Technology by Worthington Industries. You, as majority shareholder and founder of Worthington Industries, have decided to take a personal role in the integration. You asked to meet the scholarship program participants personally. A beautiful initiative, by the way, before we implement the new organizational structure. Rebecca Sterling looks like she might faint. Her face has gone completely white. The confident woman who had called security, who had laughed at a father in work clothes, who had suggested he belonged in the downstairs lobby, that woman is gone. In her place is someone watching the ground open beneath her feet. Gerald Worthington continues, his voice carrying the weight of decades of corporate authority. James built Worthington Industries from nothing, from a small construction firm in a rented garage to a multinational holding company. He did it without investors, without connections, without a family name or a trust fund. He did it with hard work and integrity and a fundamental belief that every person deserves to be treated with dignity, from the janitor to the chairman. He pauses and looks directly at Rebecca, which is exactly why what happened in this office today is so profoundly disappointing. James, Gerald Worthington says, turning back with warmth, let me formally present you to the Sterling Technology executive team. You are now the board-appointed chairman and CEO of this company, effective immediately. This is your company now. The board members applaud. It's a formal, respectful applause, the kind that acknowledges not just a title transfer, but a moment of consequence. Madison, the assistant, is standing by the door with her hand over her mouth, tears streaming down her face. The security guards who had been asked to escort James out are frozen in place, exchanging glances that say, "Everything words cannot." Rebecca Sterling's legs give out slightly, and she sits down very hard in her chair. "I don't understand," Rebecca Sterling says hoarsely. But how is it possible that I didn't know? How is it possible that no one told me?" "Because," Gerald Worthington says gently, "we wanted to run this integration carefully. We wanted to see how the leadership of this company responded to unknown circumstances. We wanted to understand the true character of this organization's upper management." He looks at her meaningfully. "And now we understand," he says. James walks over to Rebecca Sterling's desk. He's not angry. His expression is calm, almost gentle. He looks at her the way a teacher might look at a student who has failed an important test. "Ms. Sterling," he says, "let me be clear about something. I don't care how you treated me. I'm not offended by your assumptions about my worth based on my appearance. I understand that people make judgments. I understand that the world can be cruel to people who don't fit a certain image." He pauses. "But I do care," he continues, "about the fact that you treated your own employees with contempt based on their perceived social status. I care that you were kind to people you thought had power and dismissive to people you thought were powerless. I care that your kindness is conditional on how much money you believe someone has." Rebecca Sterling's eyes are filled with tears. "In 3 months," James says, "this company is going to go through significant changes. We're going to change our corporate culture. We're going to hire people based on their competence and their character, not their appearance or background. We're going to build a company where everyone, the CEO and the custodian, is treated with equal respect." He takes a step back. "You will have an opportunity to be part of that company, or you can resign. That choice is yours. But make no mistake, the company you ran is gone. The person who ran it with contempt for human dignity, that person no longer has authority here." He turns away from her, and the gesture is final in a way that his words were not. The board members lead James to the boardroom. There are documents to sign. There are decisions to be made. The logistics of corporate power transfer are complex and require attention. But at 3:15 p.m., James takes a break. He walks to the program room where Sophie and the other children are attending a presentation about technology and innovation. He stands in the back of the room, watching his daughter. She's raised her hand 3 times to answer questions. She's smiling. She has no idea what has just transpired in the upper floors of this building. When the presentation ends, the children are released to their parents. Sophie sees her father and runs to him, throwing her arms around his legs. "Daddy! Daddy! Did you see? They showed us the new technology they're developing. It's so cool. They said maybe I could come back and intern here when I'm older." James kneels down and gathers his daughter into his arms. "Sophie," he says, and his voice is thick with emotion that he's kept contained for the entire ordeal. "I need to tell you something. Do you remember what we talked about this morning? About how you asked if I would come to your school thing?" Sophie nods. "And I came," James continues, "because you're the most important thing in my world. No matter what, no matter how difficult it is, no matter what it costs me, because your dreams matter. Because you matter." "I know, Daddy," Sophie says, with the particular wisdom of children who have learned early that love is not about what you have, but about who you're with. "That woman who was mean to me earlier," James says gently, "I want you to remember something. That woman judged me based on my appearance. She judged you based on my appearance. But here's what I want you to know. I am so much more than what I look like. And you are so much more than what your family looks like. You are more than your house or your clothes or the car we drive. Sophie looks up at her father with absolute seriousness. I know that, Daddy, she says. Because you taught me that. James feels something break open inside his chest, and he holds his daughter tighter, right there in the hallway of Sterling Technology Corporation, surrounded by glass walls and expensive art and all the trappings of a world he's just entered. I'm proud of you, he says, every single day. I'm proud of who you are, and I'm proud of who you're going to be. 6 months pass. Sterling Technology Corporation has undergone a complete transformation. The company's culture has shifted from one based on hierarchy and appearance to one based on merit and character. The scholarship program has been expanded to include 5 schools instead of 1. Mentorship has become genuine rather than performative. Rebecca Sterling resigned from the company 3 months into the transformation. She's doing better now, working at a mid-sized firm, and by all accounts, she's a different person. Someone who's learned that the world can't be divided into people who matter and people who don't. James Parker sits in the new CEO's office, not the one that was Rebecca Sterling's, but a different one that he designed himself. It's modern, but comfortable. It has photos on the desk, a professional portrait of him and Sophie, taken on his first day as chairman. There are drawings from Sophie hanging on the wall, work-for-hire projects he hasn't bothered to replace because they matter more to him than any piece of expensive art ever could. He's on a video call with Margaret Chen, one of the board members. The Q3 earnings report came in, Margaret is saying. Better than projected. Your restructuring initiatives have actually increased productivity by 32%. That's good, James says, but what matters more is the employee satisfaction survey. What did that show? Margaret smiles at him through the screen. It showed that employee satisfaction increased from 41% to 87%, she says. People feel valued. They feel like they're being seen as human beings, not just resources. That's what you did, James. That's what we all did, James says. But I appreciate it. After the call ends, James looks out at the city view, the same view that Rebecca Sterling used to look out at, but he's never really paid much attention to it. It's beautiful, yes, but it's not what moves him. What moves him is that at 5:30 p.m., he closes his laptop and takes the elevator down to the parking garage. He drives to Sophie's school and picks her up. They go to their favorite diner, the same one they always went to, and they order the same food they always order. Sophie tells him about her day. He listens with his whole heart. Daddy, Sophie asks while they're eating, that lady at your work, the one who was mean, is she okay now? James sets down his coffee and looks at his daughter. Yes, he says. I think she is. I think she learned something important. What? Sophie asks. That everyone deserves kindness, James says. Even people who don't look like they deserve it. Especially people like that, actually. Because the people who are the hardest to be kind to are usually the ones who need it the most. Sophie processes this seriously, stirring her milkshake with her straw, the way she always does when she's thinking hard about something. Daddy? Yeah, baby girl. At school today, there was a boy who didn't have nice shoes. Some of the other kids were laughing at him. I sat with him at lunch. James feels his throat tighten. He reaches across the table and takes his daughter's hand. That's exactly right, Sophie. That's exactly what I'm talking about. He was really nice, Daddy. He told me about his dog. His dog only has 3 legs, but he said she's the fastest dog on their street. Sophie smiles. He said broken things can still be the best things. James stares at his daughter. 7 years old, and she already understands something that a CEO with 6 years of corporate power never learned. You were kind to her, Sophie observes, circling back to the question about Rebecca. Even though she was mean. I was, James says, not because she deserved it, but because kindness isn't about what other people deserve. It's about who you choose to be. Your mom taught me that. She taught me that the way you treat people when you have power over them, that's the real measure of a person. Not their title, not their money, not their clothes. I remember Mom, Sophie says softly. I remember she always smiled at everyone. She did, James says, and his voice catches just slightly. She smiled at everyone because she believed everyone was carrying something heavy, and a smile cost nothing but could mean everything. And there, in a simple diner, in the presence of his daughter, James Parker understands what he's always known deep down. This moment, this connection, this love, this is the real wealth. This is what all the success is for. The world will never know that. The world will look at his title and his net worth and assume that's what matters. But James knows better. And now, so does Sophie. Outside the diner, the city continues its endless hustle. People are climbing, people are striving, people are measuring their worth against each other. And in a small booth in a diner, a man and his daughter are measuring their worth in something far more valuable. In time, in presence, in the absolute certainty that someone sees you and loves you anyway. That's the real power. That's the real wealth. And it's something that no amount of money can ever buy, but everything will be sacrificed to protect it. If you've made it this far, thank you for watching. Stories like this remind us that the world is full of hidden depths, that the man in the work boots might own the company, that the quiet father in the diner might be building an empire, that the person you're about to dismiss might have a story that would change everything you thought you knew. We never know what someone is carrying. We never know what they've overcome or what they're working toward. All we can do is treat every person we meet with dignity, because they deserve it. Have you ever been judged unfairly? Have you ever met someone who looked right through you before knowing who you really were? Share your story in the comments. Hit subscribe if you believe in second chances. See you in the next one.